Hello everyone, welcome to Buttfuck Simulator. So this game is Counterforce on the Nintendo Wii, also known as X-Zeus in pretty much every other territory. We're going to be playing as Dynamis. You get a choice of 3 mechs to play with. Dynamis is the heavy hitter, but he's also slow. And that's going to be a problem for reasons we'll get into. But this game is a 3D shooter, kind of like Star Fox, linear arcade-focused 3D shooter. It is very low budget, which did not go unnoticed, but that's really not important, I think. The music is great, the overall artistic direction is consistent if not outstanding, and it definitely hits that arcade vibe it's going for. Like, this game's 30 minutes long, it's tough as nails if you don't know the tricks, so to speak, and you know, it just looks and feels like an arcade game, you know? Look at it. How the game controls is we predictably aim by pointing the Wii Remote cursor at the screen, we press A to fire, and we move around using the nunchuck's joystick. We also have bombs we can use, but we only get 3 of them. I believe we can buy more at the end of each level. We have a special attack that charges up called the Mega Laser. I know it looks like it says Mega Loser, but I assure you it says Mega Laser. We also have an alternate shot, which fires a spread of 3 shots instead of just a regular straight single shot. And we have a lock-on shot, which I usually save for the bosses because it deals a lot of damage. And you can see a lock energy meter up there. We can only use our lock-on shot when that green lock energy meter is not empty. There are a lot of enemy types, but you'll quickly learn that some are more threatening than others. Anything that comes at you with a zapping noise, for example, definitely more threatening. This game runs 5 stages, and they give you just enough continues so that someone of a mild skill level should be able to make it to the final boss. Ideally. It's worth noting, very worth noting, that this game originally came out on the PS2, and I would recommend playing that version if you ever get the chance. Not because the Wii Remote aiming is bad, the Wii Remote aiming is fine, but for another reason we'll get to. Anyway, we're about to approach our first boss battle, and the boss battle gameplay is so different from the regular stage gameplay, they feel almost completely distinct. The bosses get a fancy introduction where their name pops up and they tell you about their weak points, and you get some weird wireframe shit going on. I don't know if that's the actual wireframe of the boss, though. It says hold your fire, but absolutely do not hold your fire, ever. There's no reason to be doing that. I assume the hold your fire prompt is just there because they wanted it to seem more like an arcade game. That was our Mega Laser we just unleashed a bit ago. And now I'm using the lock-on constantly. The lock-on shot is great. So the way the bosses work is that you can see them twitch, and when they twitch, you want to move out of the way. And moving out of the way is probably enough if you're playing as any of the faster mechs, but when you're playing as Dynamis like we are, you want to use the dodge function. So, in order to dodge, what you do is you flick the nunchuck either left or right, and you dodge in that direction. Which normally would be fine, but it doesn't fucking work, and I hate that. I hate being the person that goes, all the motion controls don't work. It just pisses me off to have to say that. You know, I've played Skyward Sword. Motion controls work perfectly. Played Star Wars lightsaber duels. Motion controls work perfectly. Played Castlevania Judgment. Motion controls work perfectly, but that game is not designed for motion controls, and using the motion controls is horrible. But they work. The motion controls for dodging in this game, though, they don't work. It doesn't register properly. Sometimes you flick to the right and you move to the left, sometimes you don't dodge at all, it's just a mess. And you know, sure, this could probably be circumvented if I just played as one of the faster mechs, but I don't want to play as one of the faster mechs, I want the dodge function to fucking work right. When it does work right, it's great, you know? You see the boss twitch, and you dodge just in time to avoid an attack, as you've seen me do a few times by now. But sometimes you end up dodging into them, because you go the wrong fucking direction. Sometimes you end up just sitting still and getting hit because it doesn't register properly. But the times when it does work like that, it's great. Like, you can see how when I'm deliberately, intentionally dodging attacks and it's working, the dodge function is clearly awesome, right? It would be great if it worked all the time instead of just sometimes. My brother came out into the living room and watched me trying to beat the final boss of this fucking game, and he said it looked like I was playing a really intense arm wrestling simulator, trying to get the goddamn controls working. So on the shop screen between levels, you can buy upgrades to your shield and health meter, which is great. It means you can take more damage, and it's especially important because your health doesn't refill between levels. So anyway, instead of bitching about the non-functional controls some more, remember there's a PS2 version of this game you can play instead, and I recommend doing that. This game was developed by one of the two main founders of a development studio called Toka, who developed some very little-known beat-em-ups like Soul Fighter and Hidden Invasion. Not very big company. But I wanted to see what else they were up to, and it turns out they were making shit like Counterforce. The developer of Counterforce is called Hyper Devbox, by the way, and they're still around making more games. But yes, one of the guys behind shit like Hidden Invasion and Soul Fighter, and the very unfortunately named, because it makes it so difficult to find, Legend, and the reboot Legend Again on the PS1. Not called Legend Again, the name is just Legend a second time. Two beat-em-ups named Legend, one on the SNES, one on the PS1. Second one's a reboot of the first one. Glad we got that out of the way. That was a lot of fucking words to say that the guy that made this game also made a lot of old beat-em-ups. Anyway, this game has a sequel called X-Zeus 2, predictably. And it is available on PC, fucking believe it or not. You can actually get it on Steam. And it looks rad as hell. But X-Zeus 2 looks a lot like the first one, but more polished, and with more game mechanics and quality of life features. So, you know, maybe you should look into that if this looks cool, or you should look into the PS2 port of this. Just don't play the Wii version of this, for the reasons I discussed during the first boss battle. This is a fun game that absolutely nails the arcade atmosphere. It has a goofy, great announcer. Sounds like it came straight out of the 90s. Lots of fun, weird sound effects. Lots of explosions. It's just a shame the motion controls don't work, but there are ways to get around that. And if you have one of the ways to get around that, then sure, you know, play this. Absolutely. Just keep in mind it's like 30 minutes long, if that's a deterrent to you. Anyway, that's Counterforce on the Wii.